Great, so thank you, and welcome back for Reunion. This is always a great day. One of the things I love about Reunion, John Gardner, who was the great leader at Stanford and teacher, when I was an undergraduate at Stanford, he gave a graduation speech, which he actually turned into a book as well, and it was about renewal. And it's a great talk. The premise of this talk was that if you look at people's lives and you look at organizations, some people and organizations sort of go to seed over time, and some people and organizations find ways to renew themselves over time and sort of branch out into new directions. And I always think the beautiful thing about universities is we have renewal sort of built into the structure of the university. Every year we graduate another class and we sort of clear the decks, and then the whole university is renewed in the fall when the new class comes in. And reunions are another form of that renewal. It's a chance for you all to come back and to renew your connections to each other and renew your connections to the school. And so it's just such a pleasure to have you there as part of that cycle that means so much to the school and to Stanford. Here's what I'm going to do. So we actually have quite a program for you in this session. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the school. I'm going to say a little bit about what's going to happen to the school after the transition. And then I'll say a little about the university. We can have some questions. And then at 5 o'clock, I'm going to invite Susan Athey, my colleague, up onto the stage. And we're going to have a discussion about Susan's career and her work. And she's doing some amazing stuff on technology and policy and AI. And I think for those of you who don't know Susan, you will love getting to hear from her. So let me say start with a little bit about the school. I think the GSB is, actually the GSB is in just fabulous shape. It's really, we've had just a spectacular year here at the school. I'll say a little bit about 3 different areas at the school. So Derek already, the school has a very inspiring mission, and Derek already talked about it. The idea of creating ideas, as Derek said, that will illuminate the practice of management and educating, developing innovative and principled and insightful leaders who will change the world. It really is an incredible mission. And since the time I've been dean, I have thought about advancing that in 3 different ways. One of them is just the foundational excellence of the school in both scholarship and especially in educating students who are going to go off and change the world. And that's driven so many of the things that we've done here over the last 8 years. One way I think about that is that by far the most important thing in having a school that is the leading business school in the world is the people who come here, both on the faculty, to be the teachers and scholars and the students. And one good way to think about whether the school is doing well is, are we succeeding in getting, I tell people that actually strategy for the business school is pretty simple. You just go out and you try to get the best faculty in the world, the best students in the world. You make sure they have the freedom and the resources to pursue their aspirations. And then if you're the dean, you try to get out of their way. You do a little more than that, but you also have to remember to get out of their way. And so one good way to measure that is, are we succeeding in recruiting people? And if you look at the school's success in recruiting faculty over the last 6 or 7 years, of the faculty we've made offers to, about 85% of them have chosen to come here. 50% is really stellar, so that is incredible. It's a real sign of people's desire to come and be a faculty member at Stanford. The faculty is at the largest it's ever been, and the most diverse, and I think the most excellent. When you see Susan, you will definitely agree with that. And then the only number that's higher than that is the number of students who we admit who come to the school, actually. So the school is doing really terrifically in admitting your successors into the school. I'll just give you one number. So the MBA, you all know the MBA admissions we do spectacularly. Here's a number for MSX this year, which is that of the MSX students that we've admitted this year, 100% have decided to come to the GSB. So, two other areas that have been really important priorities for us at the school. One has been expanding the reach of the school, both externally to broader audiences and globally and across the university. I often think of the business school, it's a very special place within Stanford because a great business school is like, for a great university, is like a bridge to the world. Because it's so open, it's so externally facing, it's so connected to its alumni, to people who are in a position to make a difference in the world. We have really focused a lot on growing our global programs, on growing our online programs, on growing our executive education programs. This year, we tried something new at the school, which is we opened up a set of classes for Stanford undergraduates. The Stanford Pathfinder program, we offered 8 classes, 7 classes in 8 sections this year, and next year we'll have 14. And these are classes, we went out to the faculty and said, would you like to teach undergraduates? We're going to offer a set of classes. We built a classroom for them. And we told the faculty, don't teach base finance and accounting. Teach something that not that they're not inspired by base finance and accounting. They are inspired by base finance and accounting. We told them, teach something you're passionate about that's going to show students how ideas get out in the world. And the faculty came to some amazing classes this year. The student feedback was fantastic, and we thought of this as a way for the business school to give the undergraduate students some of the management, leadership, entrepreneurship, investing skills that are so powerful in all of you, and to make business education, kind of reimagine business education as part of a broader liberal education. And so that Pathfinder program, I think, has been going really, really well this year, and we'll see how it sort of progresses from here, but that's been really exciting. And by the way, for the faculty who've never taught undergraduates before, it's for the students who come in and take a GSB class where you have cases and you have speakers and all that, it's mind-blowing. And actually for the faculty, it was kind of mind-blowing as well to teach the undergraduates. They're very different than all of you were when you were MBA students. So that's been another big area. And then the third, a sort of third big priority for us that has really come to fruition nicely this year, and Susan will talk a little more about this, has been an initiative that we called the Business Government Society Initiative that we put together. Actually, during the pandemic, we started to envision it, which was really set up to think about how the business school could be at the forefront of a set of issues that were affecting not just business and business leaders, but had broader societal implications: sustainability, changes in technology, changes in politics and globalization. And so that initiative was set up with a set of different areas. Susan is actually leading the technology pillar of that initiative. And this year we have a whole set of new classes that came out of that, a new set of collaborations across the university, including a very wonderful partnership with the new Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability, with the Human-Centered AI Institute, which Susan was also part of setting up, and with the Hoover Institution, with other parts of the university. And that's been a great mechanism to do more convening, to run some really interesting conferences. We just ran a big forum here earlier this month, last month, I guess, and fund new research projects and get new programs going, including a new entrepreneurship program focused on climate entrepreneurship that's been off to a really successful start this year. So it's been a really good year for the school. The last thing I'll just say before I turn from the GSB is one thing I'm very proud about this year at the school is this has been a very tough year on university campuses, and we can talk a little more about some of the challenges with, at the university. But the GSB students and the faculty have just been extraordinary this year. They have really modeled the type of open-mindedness and curiosity and dialogue that I think everyone would hope to see and wants to see at universities. They, after October 7th, which of course we have a very international student population, was very directly impactful for students from Israel, for students from the Middle East, for the Palestinian students. They organized events. The events were open to everyone. They included everyone. They were community building. They started having educational events. Eventually, the students organized dialogues between the Jewish and Israeli students and the Muslim and Arab students. And they've just been doing that all year, and it just has been great to see that. And the faculty have been and staff have been very, very supportive of that. And it's just been a model for what you hope would happen in a difficult time. So kudos to the students and staff and faculty as well for that. I just feel really happy about the way the year has gone. Okay, let me say one or two more things about just the school. So we're about to announce a search committee to have my successor. So we'll have a process coming up to appoint the next dean of the business school. We will have a great dean of the business school, even better than me. Maybe better than, maybe that's not a very high bar, but we'll have one who's set a higher, we'll have someone who's terrific. The school I think is in really great shape. It has a very strong leadership team, so I feel really good about the situation that my successor will be in coming into the school. And I guess we'll send out the news about the search committee probably in about 2 weeks, I would guess. And that process takes several months to search for a new dean at a minimum. And let me just say one or two things about the university. So on August 1st, as Eric said, I'll be Stanford's 13th president. And I'll just say, I couldn't be more humbled and honored to have the opportunity to do that. I came to Stanford for the first time as an undergraduate. I was 17 years old. The university just completely changed the shape of my life. I came back to Stanford as a faculty member 24 years ago, and I was a faculty member in H&S for 16 years before coming here to the business school. And I will say that in almost 30 years being at Stanford, in some sense, I have never had a bad day on campus. I get to walk onto the campus every day, and every single day that I walk onto the Stanford campus, and normally it's like a beautiful blue sky day like today, and that lifts your spirits. And there is always someone to talk to who knows something that I have never thought about, or some discussion that just sparks ideas or opens my mind in some direction, or some student who is just so inspiring in what they're doing or thinking about doing. Stanford is really an extraordinary place, and so one thing I'm just so excited about is being able to go out around the university and seeing that magic across so many different domains of knowledge. Stanford is really unique among all universities probably in the world in its breadth of excellence across disciplines, and also in the degree of collaboration and goodwill across people all over the campus. It's really special in that regard. That is a core strength of the university. And then, just to echo what Derek said a minute ago, it is a pretty tough time in higher education. We have not had a great couple of years. This has not been a particularly good year for Stanford or its peer schools. I think, I grew up on a university campus in some sense and have spent my whole life around universities. I really believe in the mission of Stanford and its peer institutions. We play a very distinctive role in both the country and in the world as the engine of innovation and ideas, and the place where students come to be a home of learning and inquiry. And it's just so important right now that we reaffirm that fundamental mission and try to renew the faith and goodwill of both the people on campus, but everyone in the country and around the world. And so I really look forward to having the chance to work with everyone on the campus and all of you and everyone who loves Stanford to try to do that and bring some of the Stanford's optimism and positivity and goodwill to that effort. So anyway, so thank you all for being here, and I'm going to open it up for questions, and we can take it in any direction you like. So with that, it's up to all of you. Okay, Julia.
What surprised you most about the GSB?
What surprised me most? So the question was, what surprised me most about coming to the GSB? It's hard to even know where to begin on that question. So when I came to the GSB, I was a sort of a quasi-outsider coming in because I had been at the Humanities and Sciences for 8 years, and so I knew a lot about the faculty and the kinds of things that they worked on. Some of them I collaborated with on research. Honestly, I did not know very much, aside from the fact that my sister had been an MBA student. I didn't know that much about MBA education, and I would say two things that. One thing I grew to appreciate, and then one thing that surprised me and sort of I also grew to appreciate. The thing that I grew to appreciate most about the school is, what makes the GSB different than basically anywhere else on earth is the mix of people. That the school has such an unusual mix of people. To try to have a set of people like Susan who are the most luminary scholars in the entire world, and to bring them together with all of you and your student personas who are, ambitious and talented and ready to get out and do things, that is a pretty unusual set of people to bring together in one place. And then you combine that with the lecturers and the alumni who are on campus and just the people who come across the university. That is a very magical thing to bring together in one place. And it took me a while to really appreciate just how special that was, but that is the thing that I really appreciate most. But that's the hardest part of being dean, is trying to figure out how to make that mix, not just sort of people colliding unproductively, but to make it alchemy that turns into gold, basically. I'll say one more thing, and I would say the other thing that I really came to appreciate is just the culture. The culture, particularly the culture in the MBA program and the MSX, the student cultures. It is really incredible. There's nothing like it that I've seen anywhere, and it's really extraordinary. We meet every year at the end of the year with the outgoing leaders of the student clubs and some of the student things, and I always ask them the same question. So I asked them a question of Charles O'Reilly. Charles O'Reilly is a faculty member who studies culture, and Charles has a diagnostic question that he asks when he goes into organizations. He asks people, what does it take to succeed in your organization? And when he thinks the answer to that is sort of tells you something about the culture. And so I always ask the students that on the way out, because these have been very successful students, and I say, what does it take to succeed? And just hearing the way the students talk about their experience and sort of the themes they have, be open-minded, be curious, try to meet as many people as you can, try to explore as many ideas as you can. I mean, it is just fabulous to hear that. It's like that is what everyone needs right now. So that is a very special thing. I've really come to appreciate that as well. Yeah.
All right, so I really want to ask what matters most to you and why, but I'm not going to do that. So coming back for our 10-year reunion, so much has happened over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in the world today, both geopolitically and technologically. The end of your first 10 years as Stanford's president, what do you want people to look back on and say, that was his biggest accomplishment? That's really what changed the university.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question, and it's probably I'm gonna not completely answer it actually, because I'm at T-minus 3 months, and so I'm probably more at the stage of trying to learn than having exactly a set of 10-year objectives, and I guess I'm more at the stage of having themes and questions as opposed to knowing exactly what the university should be, but I'll say a few things that I think are essential. It is essential that the university goes on, continues to build its strength across different disciplines of knowledge, and really strengthens the culture of basically dialogue and collaboration and curiosity on the campus that's really needed right now. So that's a sort of essential thing. One of the things that I love about Stanford is that the place is so innovative and entrepreneurial, and so something that I don't know exactly what all the things will be, but in 10 years, I hope we'll be able to look back and say, there were some things that came onto the radar screen. Maybe they're already here in some cases, like AI and data science and so forth, sustainability, that we got out into the forefront and we pursued those ambitiously and really set an example for everyone in the world. I'd love some of that to be around expanding the educational vision and footprint of the school in different ways. That's been such a rewarding thing to pursue here by expanding the set of people we educate. I think there's opportunities to do it at the university level. And then I think we have a lot of work to do at the national level and probably beyond to just put higher education on better footing with the people of this country. And yeah, and we could talk more about that, but I think that's an absolute necessity over the next 10 years, if not sooner. Yeah.
Hi, Dean Levin. My name is Chris, and I'm class of 19. And I have a question regarding the culture of GSB, because GSB has been around for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it's also known for its culture of being very supportive, very open-minded. But just curious, what has been the biggest involvement of GSB's culture during maybe your time at Stanford? What has been staying the same? What has been the new elements that has been adding to the GSB culture, and what's driving those changes and involvement?
That's a very interesting question. I think you hit on, I'll say one thing that's the same and one thing that has maybe evolved in some ways. So I think the point that you made, going around at reunions, I love going to reunions because in the fall, some of you are about to graduate to a fall reunion, your next reunion, but you've got 5 years, so don't worry. But going around to your reunions, there is a set of common things that you'll hear in a first reunion and in a 5th reunion and in a 25th reunion and in a 50th reunion. And some of those things are just gratitude for the people who you got to be with in the class, and an appreciation for how supportive people are, an openness to other people, just a sort of incredible feeling of support and really love for the school and for the people in the class. I think that's gone on, that's been there for a long time. You know, the school's always been very entrepreneurial and very innovative and so forth. I think one thing that has changed over time, I mean, the school was always very diverse in many ways in terms of the students coming in, but it's just the range of people who come into the school. I mean, our current class would have students from 65 countries. It would have students who come from so many different backgrounds. Yes, you have people from consulting, from private equity, but then you'd have students who led Navy SEAL teams or who were Olympic gold medalists or who were speechwriters in the White House, and just the breadth of people, and then the breadth of places that they go after they graduate. And those of you in the most recent classes know this, that people just go off in so many different directions. And I think one thing that I think we have navigated very successfully, and we'll hope continue to, I'm sure we will continue to navigate, is when you bring in such a broad range of people, it is a challenge to create a really strong pluralistic community out of people who have so many differing experiences and aspirations, and I think the school's done that really successfully, and that's just so important. Every campus needs to do that now, and I think the school's been, pretty successful in navigating that in a complicated external environment. In the back.
Is it me?
Oh, there were two.
Hi,
Okay.
I'm Harshit. I just graduated last year. You said that Stanford brings a very wide variety of people, and the diversity is compelling, for sure. But the workforce today requires a much deeper cross-functional collaboration. And what do you think Stanford can do to take multidisciplinary collaboration to the next level?
And that's a great question. I think it's easiest maybe to answer by examples. So I'll give you maybe one or two examples of places where I've seen Stanford doing some really interesting things. So one is here. So the partnership that we've created with, which you know about, with the Stanford Door School. The Stanford Door School got started, this is the second year of the Stanford Door School is our new school of sustainability, which was started last year. And when the planning started for that about 5 years ago, I guess maybe it was even a little longer, 6 years ago or something, 5 years ago, we looked around at the business school, and we didn't have very many. We had a lot of students interested in sustainability and climate, but we didn't have a lot of faculty interested in that area. And so we started having faculty discussions on Zoom. This was actually during the pandemic by this time. And it was one of our faculty members, Bill Barnett, and I. We kind of organized these weekly or every couple week meetings on Zoom. And I think the first one we had like 5 faculty members showed up to this, who were the predictable people who had been working in this area for years. And then, we kept talking, and we had people from the Door School come over, and, pretty soon there were 20 faculty coming to these meetings. Now, so it was Zoom, and it was still early enough in the pandemic that people actually were looking for things to do to get on Zoom. It wasn't later in the pandemic when they were like impossible to get in to come on Zoom. But by the end, people got excited. They got curious about it. They started thinking about all the ways in which climate change and sustainability were going to intersect with whatever they were studying. And we actually started, and the first thought we had was we were going to have to go out and hire 5 or 6 faculty to strengthen the ranks. And by the end, it was pretty clear that we wouldn't have to do that because we actually had them on the faculty, and they were going to start talking to and teaching with and doing programs with the Door School. And that was a really great model. Cam Moeller and Arun Majumdar, Cam was the interim dean, and Arun Majumdar is the current dean, were amazing in helping us to build the connections, and Bill Barnett helping us to build the connections, and the students actually were fabulous. Some of you were in those classes, were incredible as well. So that was an example. There's so many other examples around the university. I mean, if you look at, say, the interface between engineering and medicine, it is just, there is so much back and forth. It's like there's no boundary between the schools in some sense. Probably, I think 1/3 of the research grants in the engineering school have a collaborator from the medical school, which is extraordinary. You would not find that at most other universities. That's really an incredible thing. Okay, another one. That was another one in the back.
With deference to my 2 Navy classmates in the room, I think you meant to say how the Air Force brings value to the class.
Okay, there we go.
I actually had a much simpler question. Was just curious how the business schools' admissions policies have had to evolve in light of sort of recent legal challenges to different admission characteristics.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, the Supreme Court decision last June has this is the first year since the Supreme Court decision ending affirmative action, and we don't actually know what the effect of that will have been, because part of complying with that decision, well, I'll just say, let me actually step back before answering the specifics of it and say, I think one thing I'm very proud about at the school is the admissions team, and really this goes back many years. I mean, Derek had a huge part in this when he was Dean of Admissions, and Kirsten Moss when she was Dean of Admissions. And by the way, we have a new Dean of Admissions, Erin Nixon, who is a class of 10. She's class of 2010, and she's going to join us in July, and I think she's going to be just absolutely fabulous. So the admissions team for many years now has put a huge emphasis, particularly on outreach and trying to encourage the broadest set of people to apply to the school. And it's done that. It's done that globally. It's done that regionally within the U.S. It's done that in terms of different areas of experience. It's done that in terms of different groups that historically have been underrepresented at the school. And if you look at the numbers in admissions, they absolutely track that. And a lot of investment also in recruiting, in trying to make sure that when we admit people, we have a very high bar for admissions, and when we recruit people, that we get them to come. And I think that's been really borne out in the classes in recent years. It's quite amazing. When the Supreme Court made their decision on affirmative action, we had to change some things in admissions. So the admissions team is blinded to race and ethnicity in the process, and in fact blinded so that we actually don't even have the outcome statistics for the first round. We won't unblind until the summer, and we'll see what the effect has been. I think what won't change is that the school is going to continue to be committed to having a a broadly diverse class, and doing everything we can in the outreach to go out and encourage people to apply, and everything in the recruiting phase to try to land people, and have very generous financial aid as well. That's been a big thing at the school. I'll just say one more thing about financial aid, which is one of the things we did at the school about 6 or 7 years ago was to redesign the financial aid system at the school to make it need-based. So the school has a financial aid system that is actually almost unique among business schools, in that you get admitted and you get a financial aid award that depends on your income and assets, not sort of on some discretionary policy. And that's been a very successful program for us. We've also increased it by about 50% since then, which is also helpful. And then we have one more layer on top of that, which is a program designed to help students who have, who came from less affluent backgrounds. So whose parents basically came from low SES families, because the financial aid is based on the individual. And I think that's hopefully, in the long run, is going to be hugely helpful for ensuring that we continue to have a diverse class. Having really generous aid will at least take things like intergenerational wealth to some extent out of the equation to the most, the biggest extent possible. I think that's an important thing where the school can continue to double down over time. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Yi Hong from China. I'm class 14, MBA, and I'm very glad that I finally come back again after 4 years.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you foresee business and academic activities with China will evolve in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have a real interest in China. I mean, I've had one for a long time. And when I came to the business school, that was actually one of the things that I really wanted us to do at the school, was to build stronger connections to China. So for instance, in 2017, we ran the China Forum in Beijing, and that was kind of the first major event that Stanford as a university had run in China, and we brought all of the president and all the deans and the bunch of faculty and so forth. We went to Beijing. We had had alumni from all over Asia actually who came to that. We've continued that forum now in Singapore, and the next one will be in Dubai. It was an amazing moment because two things were incredible about it. One was, some of you probably have an appreciation for this, but I didn't fully until we had that event, which is Stanford, until about the early 1990s, did not have that many students from China. Now we have about 1,000 students from China at Stanford. And many students, particularly from the engineering school and the business school, who have come here from China have gone back to China and have been just so influential in helping to grow the entrepreneurial sector, the innovative part of the economy, to sort of bring some of the spirit of Silicon Valley to China and actually to all of Asia. It's just amazing to see. And so I was just completely stunned when we went to do that event. I think everyone was who participated in it. And the second thing was, we held that event in 2017. It was such a moment of optimism. I mean, there were some frictions, but it was such a moment of optimism for collaboration between the US and China becoming more open to the world, and possibilities for investing and collaboration in a lot of different things. And of course, the situation politically has just changed, and not in a good way, since then. And the pandemic didn't help either. So we've continued with the Tsinghua exchange program. We've continued to try to do many things with China. Actually, our numbers of students from China has not declined. And we have faculty who work on China. We just hired a new faculty member who's a China expert in China finance, Zhigua He. He's fabulous. But there's more headwinds. The last thing I would say is I have the view, actually, which is there's a real temptation for places like Stanford right now, particularly with all the Washington scrutiny about research collaborations with China and research security and students, to sort of pull back from engagement with China. My own view is actually exactly the opposite. I have the view that one of the roles universities can play when there is political tension between countries is that's actually a more important time for universities to engage, because universities, because we're non-political, can actually foster a lot of dialogue and discussion and have a very essential role to play in fostering mutual understanding. And so we need to kind of lean into that, even though we have to be thoughtful about all of the national security and political implications. And so that's been the strategy we've tried to pursue, is just look for all the ways that we can continue to engage, understanding that it's a harder and more complicated environment. Okay, I'll do one more and then we're going to move to Susan. Yeah, that was a very hard question. The question was, what should be done to put higher education on a stronger footing in this country? I'm going to try to answer in the following way, which is to say, American universities, they play a very distinctive role in the country and actually in the world, and they really do two things within the country. The first is American universities are basically the engine of innovation for the country, and that's really something that happened basically in the last 75 years after World War II, when the US made the decision to locate science and technology research within universities and create the NSF and have a merit-based system for awarding grants and all of that. And American universities have basically been the reason that the United States has been a leader in science and technology over the last 75 or 80 years. Second, universities are the home of learning. They're places of inquiry. They're places where students come together and we teach them to think for themselves and to talk with each other and to engage in debate, and hopefully, as a result of that, produce citizens and leaders who are going to go out and do incredible things in the world. And I think that that fundamental mission is really important. I think one of the challenges we've come into is our mission has sort of gotten a little bit lost, and people have sort of maybe forgotten a bit what is the purpose of universities, or they've expanded and tried to think that we should do more things and things that are politically contentious. I mean, universities are not social justice organizations. They create immense societal good, but they're not here to solve every problem in the world. They're not here to solve every problem that students have. They're here to foster discovery and foster learning, and I hope that by focusing on those things, I would hope that things that many, many people in the country can get behind, and they're not political, they're not particularly partisan. That would be a good step toward starting to rebuild trust. We have to have those principles, and then many principles follow from that, and I think articulating those and then trying to follow them consistently will get us a long way. So you can check back with me in 6 months or so. Okay.